This video is intended to show you examples of formatting quotes from Shakespeare's plays and also a few examples of works cited entries. So if you're doing a research paper, this will help you with the works cited page. If you're writing about Shakespeare's plays, you'll get some instruction on formatting the quotes in MLA style in your essay, in the text of your essay. Shakespeare can be difficult to cite in your essay because they're drama, but in addition to that, some passages are prose, whereas other passages are poetry. So when you're quoting the plays, you need to follow the rules in MLA style for quoting drama, but in addition to that, you need to use the rules for quoting either prose or poetry. Dr. Womack has an online guide that's detailed. I've linked that here, so you can see it right here. And it's very helpful and gives examples of quotes and how to format them. Here I'm just going to cover some absolute basics. Here's an example showing dialogue. This is if you want to give a passage that's more than one character speaking. Notice here I've copied and pasted the original from the online playtext. You can save yourself a lot of time if you copy and paste from the online playtext instead of typing it in yourself, which can be a pain because obviously spelling is not standard in the period, so it's a little more demanding to type in. So here's the passage formatted as if for an in-text citation, and I've made a little sentence introducing the quote. Iago encourages Rodrigo to wake Brabantio in the middle of the night, which places the blame on Rodrigo and makes Iago seem more innocent. Colon. The colon here is introducing the quotation, and it's dialogue. It's two characters speaking, Rodrigo and Iago. You could use a comma to introduce, although in a case like this, it's more common to use the colon. So I give the character's name in capital with a period in the space after it, and then the text of whatever dialogue they're speaking. So here's Rodrigo, here is her father's house. I'll call aloud. Iago, caps, period, space, do with like timorous accent and dire yell, as when by night and negligence the fire is spied in populous cities. Notice here this in-text citation at the end of the quote. When you're using this long block format of quote, the period goes before the parenthesis. So it's a period, space, parens, Act 1, Scene 1, line 81 to 84. The standard now in MLA style is to quote plays by Arabic numerals, 1.1 point, and then instead of page numbers, you give the line numbers, line 81 to line 84. If you take a look also, because this is poetry, I have to have the line breaks just the way they are on the page originally, so it breaks at yell, and then there's a capital A at as, when, even though the line isn't jammed and I read it continuously because it's poetry, I want to get the format with the line breaks on the page. In the case of poetry, when you quote 3 lines or more, you'll use the format for the long block quote, which has the ½ inch indent from the left margin and no quotation marks around it. What that does is it sets the quote apart in the center of the page and distinguishes it from your own writing so that your readers can see the beginning and the end of the quote really clearly, and they're not reading along and wondering, when did the quote end? Did it end yet? The block quote shows on the page the beginning and end of the quote. So this is an example of quoting dialogue, and you include the characters' names to make clear to your readers who's speaking and which lines are spoken by whom. My next example is going to be a short quote with some long block quotes also. So these are the rules for just a short quote and the rules for a long block quote. And it's for poetry and drama. There's the original of the passage, and here's the passage formatted for use as an in-text citation. And again, I've made some sentences with quotes to use as an example. Although Iago clearly wishes to be self-made, advancing his own wily schemes, he suggests to aristocratic Rodrigo that he wishes for the good old days when, quote, preferment, end quote, or advancement came by, quote, old gradation, where each second stood heir to the first. And there's the end of the quote. Notice that first self-made. I have that in quotations because that's a word that I'm using as the word. He wishes to be a self-made man. That is not a quote from the text. Here, preferment and old gradation are quotes from the text. In the case of the word preferment, it's from a single line, so I simply put the parts that I'm quoting in quotation marks. Notice that the punctuation goes inside the quotation marks for NLA style. Here, I'm quoting 2 lines of poetry. It's Act 1, Scene 1, line 39 to 40. Because it's poetry, I have to indicate where the line breaks, and I do that with this slash right here between the lines. Sorry for that. That keeps showing the menu, and I don't want to do that. So it's old gradation where each second space/space stood heir to the first. Notice I use all of the punctuation and the, sorry about that menu, and the capitalization just as it is on the page in the text that I'm drawing on. By saying this, this is my writing, Iago appeals to Rodrigo's aristocratic self-entitlement. Notice that Iago never lies, not exactly. He merely suggests to Rodrigo that he might prefer the, quote from the text, old gradation, rather than directly stating it. Notice here's a quote from the text that I've used that is in the middle of the sentence, so it has a comma in the punctuation, the quotation marks, and the period at the end of the sentence. Iago ends by asking Rodrigo to draw his own conclusions as to which Iago might prefer, and I'm introducing now my long quote. It's 3 lines, so I have to set it apart as a block quote. It's 1/2 inch from the left margin, indented. The period goes before, not after the quotation marks, and then I give the act, scene, and lines. Just a few things on formatting. If you want to get this format and not have to tab from the left margin, you can just click on Format and then do Align and Indent, Increase Indent, just like that. And then it will bring the whole section to the 1/2 inch from the left margin and do it automatically and also in such a way as that if you revise at any point, it'll still hold its formatting. So again, example of a short quote. This is 2 lines, and it's old gradation, comma, space, where each second space/space, capital S, stood heir to the first, end quote, space, parens, 1.1.39 to 40, end parens, and then period at the end of the parens for the short quotes. Versus that long block quote here, which has, instead of quotation marks, it has the 1/2 inch indent from the left margin. And the quote, now, comma, space, sir, comma, space, be judge yourself, comma, line break, whether I in any just term and affind, line break, capital T, love the more, period, parens, space, parens, 1.1.40-42, end parens. So that's the long block quote. So just to review, we had one quote that showed dialogue with the characters' names. We had another that was a single word being quoted. We had another case that were 2 lines being quoted, and those were done as in-text quotes with quotation marks around them. And then we have the long block format here, which is 3 lines or more. To set it apart, you have the 1/2 inch indent from the left margin, no quotation marks, and the period goes before and not after the parens. Remember also that for poetry you give line numbers, not page numbers. Here's examples of a works cited entry. And first thing to notice is this hanging indent. The hanging indent allows you to see the author's name, the last name of the author, on the left margin and very clearly distinguish each entry from the other. So we see Gilmore, comma space Lee, Shakespeare, comma space William, and then Shepherd, comma space Matthew. The authors are organized alphabetically from Gilmore to Shakespeare to Shepherd. This allows your reader to very easily look up the sources. Say if you cite Gilmore in your essay, your reader can go and look under G for Gilmore and find what source you'd read there. If they think it's interesting, they can themselves look it up. So how do you get that hanging indent? You go into Format, and then you go into Align and Indent, Indentation Options, and then you switch Special Indent to Hanging by 0.5 and Apply, and it will automatically create a lovely hanging indent for your works cited page. Also, it's Gilmore, comma space, Lee, first name, period, space, quotation marks, title of the article. Notice I'm capitalizing the first letter of each word, but not articles like a or the. Notice I am only putting it in quotation marks, the title of the article. It is not capitalized, it is not in all italics, it's simply in quotation marks. By putting the title in quotation marks, I'm indicating that it's a short article, whereas notice Othello is italicized, the title, and that's because it's a long work. It takes you a longer time to read. Amid a reckoning with toxic masculinity, comma space, seeing Othello, italics for the title of the play, in a new light, period, end quote of the article title, and then here's the title of the online journal that this is from, which is WBUR Cognoscenti, and I have that in italics because it's a whole journal, so it would take a long time to read, comma space, and then the date of the publication. And then nowadays they're kind of leaving it up to you whether to give the web address, but in many cases it's helpful for readers to have the web address. So I've got the web address here at the end of my entry. Same thing here with Shakespeare. This is the format for an edited collection, and the editors are Barbara Mowat, Paul Werstein, Michael Poston, and Rebecca Niles. You have to include that information. The last one is another article from an online journal, or in this case a sort of newspaper, The Conversation, with the date of publication and the web address added. So there it is, my works cited page, Gilmore, Shakespeare, and Shepherd. And hopefully this has given you some basic tools to do both in-text citations using Shakespeare's plays and to do your works cited page. Thank you.